Well, let's return to the pressure on the Philippines health system. Our South Asia correspondent Anne Barker says the WHO is warning that the Delta variant is pushing the region closer to the red line, where hospitals can no longer give proper care to the sick.
These were comments last week by Dr. Takeshi Kasai, who's the regional head for the WHO based in the Philippines. Now, he was referring to the whole Western Pacific region, which takes in Southeast Asia, even Australia, parts of the Pacific. But he was very much referring to the Philippines when he said that, you know, the surge that we've seen there in the last month, especially driven by the Delta variant, is pushing health systems to the red line. He said that, you know, ICU wards are overwhelmed, hospitals are strained, as we've seen in countries like Indonesia. And he said the Western Pacific as a whole, until August, was actually accounting for about 2% of all cases in the world. And only in the last month, that's now soared to about 10%. There have been 6 million cases in that region. In Manila, for example, 1 in 4 people at the moment is testing positive for COVID-19, and that's putting a huge strain on hospitals. We've seen churches turned into ICU wards. And as I say, it's not just the Philippines. We're seeing, obviously, Malaysia is doing very badly as well. Indonesia has come through a third wave, and just today, one of the ministers there was warning that there could well be another one towards the end of the year. So it's very much the whole region that is doing very badly at the moment.
And in the Philippines, you've spoken to a number of nurses who are grappling. I mean, they're at the front line of this. Some are even thinking about leaving the country. What are they telling you?
That's right. Look, the Private Hospitals Association says about 40% of nurses in their system resigned last year after the pandemic hit, and another 5% resigned since then, more this year. Some of them have gone into the public hospital system where they are better paid, but many of them, of course, do leave to work overseas. The Philippines is one of the biggest exporters of foreign workers, if you like, not just nurses, but domestic workers. Tens of thousands of them work overseas in the US, even Australia, the Middle East. And so there have been a lot of nurses leaving, so much so that last year the Philippines government even banned health workers from leaving the country for a while. This year they have imposed a cap so that it's somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 a year are allowed to leave, which is still enough for many nurses to consider resigning and leaving if they can get much higher salaries overseas. But of course, with the pandemic, travel is difficult. Many of them, of course, would like to stay in their home country. And that's why they've been out protesting, demanding that they get this extra special risk allowance that they were promised last year.
And, you know, of course, the Philippines are really lagging behind in terms of vaccination rates. Why are they so low? And, you know, how does the broader public feel about how the government has been handling things?
Well, look, it's a combination of things. Obviously, it's similar to Indonesia and many developing countries which have been relying on the COVAX scheme, which is another WHO project to share vaccines from some of the wealthier countries to countries like the Philippines. They obviously lack the funds that countries like Australia and the US have to buy vaccines in large doses. A lot of them have been getting donations from China, the Sinovac, the Sinopharm vaccines, and so on. So the Philippines is about between 12 and 15% fully vaccinated at the moment. The government has actually secured enough vaccines in the months ahead to vaccinate about 100 million people and a vast number of adults. That is something that will happen hopefully by the end of the year. But there has, as you say, been a sluggish rollout, particularly outside the capital, Manila, when you go to some of the outer provinces, which are also very densely populated. People there have not been able to get vaccines so quickly, and that's where we're likely to see a surge of cases in the weeks ahead.
Good to talk, Anne. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bev.